So that was very interesting what you mentioned about the relative size of the craft.
Yeah, that was
It was absolutely huge, this craft.
and that was the small. I call it the small craft, and then you were talking about the big one, which we got
The silver one.
this big silver one, which this is the one we had the
meeting in.
we were actually well, I don't know, we joined them actually on board their craft.
Yeah.
We saw them above us, and we just got whizzed up with them. And this craft was even bigger, so I don't know how many craft could get inside. Maybe that could go inside the mother craft, maybe more times than It's like a big aircraft carrier, which has got more and more things on board. So where this mothership one was even bigger, but that was certainly held a lot of people, and I think that was very important. So it.
Now, just while you're mentioning that, you did show a picture of the writing in the clouds.
Yeah, that was when I was at in Ipswich looking.
Now, I thought you were having a laugh, but there is actually writing in that cloud.
Yeah, this is maybe not as as clear to some, but you can see if you look on the pictures. Yeah. We got here. There's
just for the point of view, you can just about see writing in that.
Yeah, and we study it, keep looking at it. It's right across the sky, and these pill craft, which are just like that one that came with the craft I made. They start drawing and writing, and you used to get words, and they'd be writing across. And this here, I think it was something. I think I looked at it and kept looking at it. It said "Greetings from Andromeda Galaxy." It got there. It goes across the line. But I think on the original picture, I think it was on one of the computer pictures. You could see it a little bit clearer. But this is printed out from the picture, and I was amazed by how they can communicate through the writing. But the other thing is that
until I actually saw that in the cloud.
Oh yeah,
and it's just you do have to look at it carefully, but
yeah.
It is
you after you start looking
letters written in that cloud.
But as soon as you start to look up and you're looking in this cloud, they start writing, and you look, and I get so intrigued because the more you're thinking, they communicate through. Whatever there's information given, shared, and also dates and times. Now, this one is spoken to Dale Winton.
Who's he? What's his relevant? What's his?
Well, if you can see, can you read it? Because I mean, you're better.
Okay.
Read that out, because that was Brenda's writing, and that was from Dale Winton. He was on duty.
The date I went to interview him, his wife told us she'd heard about a craft and lights beaming down onto the bomb dump on Woodbridge, 26th to 27th, at about 3 a.m. Now, explain all that. There's a lot on us. There's
and
I spoke to Dale Winston.
Yeah, that's
he said he was on duty the night of the 26th to 27th, 3 a.m. He told me it was no UFO. Something did happen that night, but it was to do with the military. It was an experimental craft. It was small and triangular. It was carrying 2 men. It malfunctioned during this exercise and moved erratically through the trees. It attempted to land at Woodbridge, but hit the lights and got damaged. The 2 men did not get hurt, but they had to land it in amongst some of the trees. It was taken away in great haste, loaded up onto an aeroplane and taken to Germany.
Yeah.
So that is the main thing at Area 1.
Yeah, that was loaded, and you
so
find...
was that actually neutralising the nuclear weapons?
No, I don't think this was doing the neutralising. I reckon the nuclear weapons, I reckon the nuclear weapons, if there was anything being done there, they could have been... There could have been other crafts involved, but maybe there was one from these. I wouldn't say they're possible.
So, I mean, you're basically saying the UFO was military, special secret craft.
Yeah.
Was in trouble.
Yeah.
But in terms of the cover, you think that the neutralization of the nuclear weapons was actually a cover story?
It could have been, but this is
because it's really secret, and there shouldn't have been any weapons
yeah,
there. And there's a hush.
This has all been hushed up because you wouldn't have heard about these craft if that didn't malfunction. They would have perhaps landed and may not even been seen. But because
for it to be coming into Woodbridge, which, let's face it, is a World War II emergency landing strip. That was what it was originally built for.
Woodbridge is a bit more secretive than Bentwaters. They can cover it up a bit easier because there's less public around to view the area, because Bentwaters is surrounded by housing a lot more.
Do you think Bentwaters is the big distraction?
Maybe. I felt that Woodbridge had a lot more secretive experimenting going on over there in Woodbridge Base. There's more experimental because the craft was also seen in 1977.
And Colonel John B. Alexander explained that there were previous events at that site.
Yeah,
and he doesn't like talking to me anymore.
No, I think Woodbridge was a very secretive but very experimental area because the microwave, they had microwave radar in the 60s, and I know John Morton used to service.
What's the big deal about microwave radar? That's what radar is. Why should it be secret? What sort of secret thing are you talking about?
I think they were experimenting with some form of radio wave they could send out. Maybe it was a control, maybe it's a mind control, maybe it was even...
You're talking Montauk.
Maybe even something on that scale where they can travel, to open up a porthole, maybe.
Yeah. Now, you saw a Yeti type person?
We've seen Yeti and...
There's something in front of my lens here, Brenda. Yeah. There's something in front of my lens here, Brenda. Yeah. That's blotting out my camera.
On that track 10, I always think track 10 is very spiritual. A lot of things happen down there. We've had spirits of even when I take a picture of Brenda at night, we had a Norman soldier coming through, his shield, helmet. So there was different different life forms. I mean, I caught the rods down there at Rendlesham at track 10 near the gate. The first rods I got down at Rendlesham, and
they were visible to Mason, Brenda's dog, before it died from cancer.
Yeah, the rods were picked up, but they are like.
And just while we're talking about that, you have a cancer injury. You have a radiation injury in your lung.
Oh yeah, all over. I mean, I was doing a lot of investigating in Rendlesham and Bentwaters, everywhere around the forest. Radiation.
You've got a rather heavily tanned lower leg.
Yeah, you can have a look at it if you like, because this is all exciting. I mean, people say, "Oh, nothing happened," but you know, I mean, you have a look at this leg. This is my leg. One of my legs with what happens when you get radiation, and this is look at that nice colour in that. Yeah. That's radiation.
And do you have bone marrow problems?
Not at the moment. I mean, I had and now this one is quite as bad, but noticeably you can still see the radiation and
that's
the
a bit
colour.
More than a suntan.
Yeah, that's radiation. That's what you get when you're standing about where radiation. I should get some compensation for all this, because I think
the MOD could be open to a lot of compensation.
This is what I feel strongly about. I think the general public are not told what radiation is in that forest and everywhere with there's been reckless, whoever it is has been very reckless, and wrecked the whole countryside. We had the so-called hurricane in 1987.
This is to do with the cutting of the trees and...
Yeah, it's it's like
marks.
this. Yeah, this gets more exciting. This is all on Bentwaters, the Bentwaters base, and I went down a tree survey at Bentwaters.
And you were allowed onto the base
I
with
got
a security clearance. When was that?
That was in 2000 and was it 6 or 7?
Had it closed by then? It didn't formally close.
No, but it was run by the Kembles, and I got permission to, when my Bentwaters passed, my Bentwaters...
Yeah, but it's now a film set.
Yes, Bentwaters
but
using...
Was that after the A10s all left and the formal...
Yeah, that was still... that was used as...
was that around about that time?
Yeah, about that time. They had...
these trees, these trees have survived the hurricane of 1977.
Yeah, it's the same with a lot of trees in Bentwood. Woodbridge there had survived the hurricane. Same with Erawan that survived the so-called hurricane. Northeasterly direction, where it was going in a northeasterly direction, northeasterly, was damaging trees all over the place. But Bentwood,
when you mean all over the place, you mean all over the country?
Across the countryside, yeah, but it's not just here at Woodbridge, it's not here at Bentwaters. It went further afield, it went across the country. I mean, I was seeing Ben Hall all across anywhere with trees. I went towards Chantry or in Ipswich, trees damaged. I went to Lakenheath, looked around trees there. Setford, same thing, trees have been damaged. And all across, and here in Norwich, I was looking around and I see trees been damaged at the same time.
That's the same cutting.
Yes, it's the same. And I went over Woodbridge Road over in my dinghy, and I took Ron and I showed him the trees that had been damaged over, because I spotted that over the other side. That wasn't on forestry, that was nothing to do with forestry, it's just a farmer's land, and the same tree, the same craft had come through the trees and damaged them, grinding into trees, pushing. There was 2 types of damage, but most of that was spinning anti-clockwise craft. 2 meters wide. There weren't no wider than 2 meters or 6.
Why are there no witnesses to this?
Because nobody's asked questions of what damaged the trees. The trees are still there, but nobody said, oh, why are these trees all dead and been knocked around, look sick?
I mean, are those trees there for harvesting, or are they there, as they do around air bases, they'll put trees to keep the... You know, when you're doing that last few feet of landing,
well, these trees have just been standing, and they haven't been touched. They've been left because they haven't been knocked down. They haven't been blown down by the hurricane. They survived that, and they've just been mutilated in 1987 hurricane, the so-called hurricane. They drove through. They were smashing into trees.
And that's the one that took Radio Caroline out eventually.
Which
used the Ross Revenge. It wasn't too far away from
there. Yeah.
And in fact, I know one of the DJs from Radio Caroline who was on the Bentwaters base.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I wonder how he was on the Bentwaters base.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a guy called Ron Adams who used to be on the Bentwaters base?
Ron Adams,
he's long dead, and his whole family had social access all areas on the Bentwaters base, and they had a terror. They all were being abducted, and they had a terror of spiders, big ones.
Could well be some things going on there, because there's a lot being covered up there on that base. They did try grazing sheep all over Bentwaters, and they grazed them there for about, I think, about a couple of months at the most. Me and Brenda, we used to drive around the base perimeter fence and driving along the back roads, and the back roads, and we used to go by the base fence line, and we were spotting sheep. One dead, another one dead on the fence line, died, been just left there. They've been, and we saw at least we saw about 7 or 8 of them. They were just lying, they died, radiation, because they were grazing on ground that was all weapon storage areas around there. It was all radiated, and they're dying. And it wasn't long. I mean, I remember
but that would mean Bentwaters, which is a film set, anybody shooting movies there should know that they're in danger of radio.
Well, they had sheep for a little while on there, and they were taken off, and they, a little shortly after that, all the hangars, these hardened hangars at Bentwaters, they all had ducks and geese all over them, and they tried to do breed animals, livestock, trying to make some money with breeding these geese or ducks or something. And that didn't last very long, and they were all removed. And
now, surely you should be able to go in there with a Geiger counter and pick up.
Yeah, I reckon.
So I'm thinking that there's some other kind of energy weapon that was, for instance, used against the Twin Towers, because they noticed long afterwards sections which had been exposed to this would still have some kind of decay and radiation.
Yeah.
Whichever caused the particles to collapse in the Twin Towers.
Yeah. The Twin Towers, it was interesting because before the incident happened, before the planes and everything hit, there was an interesting article. If you look, there was a film crew filming around the flying around the Twin Towers.
If you finish with that, we can.
We'll put that in. But I just wanted to show you the actual thickness of the craft. This is at Bentwaters. I just want to show you where the point where these triangular craft gouged in a tree, and one of the trees got split into half, and this nose where the craft dug in. You can see the size of it. It's about, you can get an idea of the measurement across there.
I mean, that's about 2 inches, 2 inches thick.
Good 2 inches, but that was a sharp nose of this craft. Could push in very hard, and below this tree was all bracken and gorse bush had been flattened. So this craft came in, flattened there, and then gouged the tree. And that tree, you could not, I tried to shove it I could try to shove one half back in, it would not move. It was so the power of these things, they were spinning into trees, damaging trees. There was gouges, and this is just in some parts of on Bentwaters all across, and it's been damaged. So the military didn't have no say not to damage the trees. They just didn't care. They went through the whole lot, ploughing through northeasterly direction, and this was something that was going across the whole of the countryside.
Okay.
We had
now before we go into that, 9/11.
Oh right, 9/11. Right, 9/11. Yeah, the photograph, the picture. I was looking at. You look onto the YouTube and you look up. There was a helicopter. We could say UFO scene at Twin Towers. A helicopter crew was flying. A lady was filming in this helicopter, and she saw this disc craft pop out behind the Twin Towers. Disc, and I thought, I've seen that somewhere before. I see this same shape, and I watched how it travelled, and it came out behind the tree. It came out behind the building, sort of hovered for a little while, and all of a sudden it made a dash at the helicopter. It came whizzing right past. Boom! Right past the helicopter and goes up into the sky, and it turns. There's a sort of like a trail of maybe heat or something, but it just left and goes up in the sky very quick, controlled very so aggressively. But that wasn't no it wasn't ETs. I don't know. It weren't these beings. This is the military scaring the jumpers out of the skies, and they were doing a bit of sneaking around that Twin Towers. So they're either planning ahead of time, because when the Twin Towers got hit, I remember looking on. I had a video. I was watching at home when I lived at 12 Solution Road. That's American Pace. I was watching on the television, and I actually videoed this at the time. And I remember this Twin Towers. The first one got hit. There was it was a UFO-shaped disc craft flew past one side of the Twin Towers as the plane was guided into the tower, and there's been covered up what's going on.
Well, this whole thing about well, we don't want to go into that.
No, we won't go there. It's too difficult. That was happening at the time. But I was interested about the disc craft, the size, because that would married in the same size. When I looked and I froze it as it passed it, you can freeze it very quick. Just freeze the frame, you can get this disc craft going past the helicopter, and that looks about the same diameter what I was getting at Rendlesham, these 2 meters or 6 foot across craft. There weren't no more, because I measured where they went through the trees at Sutton, over the Sutton Heath, and there's trees where it just pushed through, and that was only no more than 6 feet or 2 meters that were at the most. You know. So I made a hoop up of the craft, and I got BBC coming down to I lived at Woodbridge, and they videoed my trees that have been damaged, and the hoop they got, and it's on the BBC web. I got a website with me on there. And the other thing, I was doing a lot of surveying around Ipswich. The hurricane, it was so-called hurricane. This was a house at Ipswich. It got hit by
a physical object.
Well, yeah, it punched in the wind. I think I've got the original. I'll just hang on. I think I've actually got the original paper here somewhere. Where was it? I think I put it to one side. Here, this is the one. Here, look, that's better. That's the original paper cutting. The paper cutting, and it shows the. You know, you look on the other side. There's a bit of the storm damage and what was going on, and wrecking places, and people got knocked. But the house itself, what I found very interesting, was this one here, which is. It was because I used to do a lot of checking on with my compass and northeasterly direction. This house was sitting right at the end of the road where this craft would have been heading in northeasterly direction, and that was heading straight for this house in that direction. So whatever was flying was only 2 meters across, because you can see where the wall was pushed in, and you can see the edges where there's a 2 meter or 6 foot craft would have fitted in there just nicely. Just pushed all the wall in, stuffed it in, didn't even take the roof tiles off, just pushed in the wall. If that had been a hurricane, the wind would have blown in the windows or something first.
The roof off as well.
Yeah, it would have took the roof off or something. But this is uncannily.
A lot of the slates would have been damaged. Yeah.
So I worked out the size of the brick, and I looked, and I would say, this fits the same size craft. And this is what I was finding just down the road from here, was the old used to be the old sugar beet factory. And on the sugar beet factory land, I was looking at the trees there. Big gouges, great scrape marks, all heading in a northeasterly direction, heading this way, going towards this house as well. And I thought, we had a massive invasion across the whole countryside in 1987, the so-called hurricane.
Why do you call it an invasion?
Well, the destruction across the whole countryside was, I started looking at UFOs at Rendlesham, and I just saw Rendlesham Forest. Then I was seeing that marks got bigger and bigger, and I was seeing it went further than just Rendlesham. And I even found the stakes at Rendlesham where the craft had landed. There was one stake being flattened and by the trees that were knocked down in the hurricane. So I knew the stakes were put in at the time of 1980. And I was finding devastation across the countryside, all over the place. And trees that, there's places that along the coastal road, and I went to down towards the Ram's Holt Arm. There was some trees, small trees, just a small windbreak being put in by the farmers years ago, and they all been hit, knocked around. They weren't trying to avoid the little tree because they weren't very high, but they just deliberately smashed into them, deliberately trying to cause as much damage as possible. And this is where we had seen everywhere there's been trees that have been damaged, and it's just everywhere. Ipswich, Chantry, Park, one tree standing on its own. Finally on this, does the official, you've had a relationship with the guy who runs the forest? Oh yeah, so I showed Richard Davis. Yeah. There was even trees damaged there, and I jumped in his pickup, his forestry vehicle, and I said, "I'll show you, Vic. I'll show you, John, where these trees have been damaged." So I went with Richard, and we drove down the track, not far away from the forestry build, but heading towards, I should say, towards the mound near that way. But this bit corner tree always stood out, and I could see it being ground into You can see it worn the tree down. You can see it spinning, and it's just so obvious. It wasn't. When I showed Richard this, he looked at it and he said, "Oh, that's where a tree has been rubbing." And I looked.
There's no other branch nearby to do that, though.
I told Richard. I said, "This is not rubbing." I said, "This is more than rubbing." I said, "You can see it is." And I said, it's a big bit of a cover-up here, isn't there? He just looked at me and started to grin. He grinned. He could see that I wasn't going to be fobbed off a tree rubbing on it. I said, yeah, there's grinding marks here. And I could see it deliberately being grinding anti-clockwise. You could see him spinning all the way up the tree. Same thing. And it was over the river. I went down a river road over the river. All rubbish, same thing. Trees being smashed to pieces, ground, all heading in northeasterly direction. And I was not obsessed, but I was going every tree. I thought, right, I'm going to go and check out everything else. I went to every tree I could find. The forest at Rendlesham, I went all around forest at Rendlesham, went all around Bentwaters. I see the trees have been damaged all over the place, and I can see them on the base. I said, I want to get permission to go on the base and do a tree survey there. I got on to Bentwaters, and I walked around all of Bentwaters. I went around all the trees, and there's trees been hit all over the place. And there was massive amount of gouges and around near the web.
It would appear that there would have been some physical debris in the air that people could have seen, surely.
Well, there was so much destruction after. I mean, even Woodbridge, the St Mary's Church, all the lead was stripped off the roof of the church. It was just hanging off. They're damaged everywhere. It went across, and it was widespread. But nobody really questioned it at the time. It was like
just a big storm.
There's just a big storm. But till I got pictures from the forestry, with Jim used to work at the forestry, he gave me all the pictures from his computer from the Forestry Commission, and that was amazing amount of information, but showed all the workers and the trees, and it showed certain parts of the forest where the wind came through and other parts of the trees are standing, just left. There's just like a sway of been somebody followed through, and
have you studied really?
I felt.
Have you studied the effects of the California fires, where whole sways of like grooves have been in the forests?
Certain parts
of Paradise.
Yeah, you see some parts are missed completely,
like stripped.
Yeah. This was while I was at Rendlesham, I noticed the trees where we piled through where all this damage was. That all the tree leaves were heavily, so like scorched. Because I remember at Woodbridge School I worked, the trees were all everywhere. There was what had tree leaves on were scorched. And I remember I was walking around the school grounds at Woodbridge School at morning, and the air was very warm. But the trees were coming down left, right and centre all over the place.
This is the morning of what?
That's the morning of the storm when the hurricane came through, so-called hurricane. I dropped my dad off at his boat. His boat was in the dock at Woodbridge, and he had a hell of a job shutting the door of my old van. I had a van. He got out and tried to shut the door. The wind was blowing so hard, or so-called. And I dropped my dad off there, and I carried up to Woodbridge School and got to, because I was head groundsman there at the Woodbridge School, and I thought I'll look around the grounds, and I started walking across to the main field and across the field and near the cricket square, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. I was leaning into wind, and then my feet started slipping. That shook me up, and there was bits of tin.
Why did your feet?
Well, the wind was strong, and so strong, and also there was bits of tin were flying past me, and I thought, I think I'm going to get the tractor out. So I went back to the shed and got the old Fergie tractor out, got it out the doors after a bit of a struggle, kicked the doors open.
Dangerous that, very, very.
Yeah, so I got in the. I had to, because I parked my van up facing the wind because I'd blown otherwise if I had it sideways onto the wind. So I got in the tractor and drove out and went round the ground with the headlights on the tractor, looking at all the trees. They were blowing down all over the place, coming with one place to another. There was trees coming down, pine trees coming down one side and another, trees blown across the drive, the main school, and people's in gardens, there was trees coming down, and it was chaos everywhere. So it was only until daybreak when I got to look around, everything had been devastated. And there was a lot of clearing up to be done. It took ages to get the trees all moved, and oak trees have been took over as well. Everywhere pine trees have been broken, snapped, or completely. And there was also the heating effect. There was trees that have been, I thought maybe it was, they were burnt, like been burnt by something. And I thought, oh, maybe it's just the salt air coming from the sea whipped up. I thought, oh, maybe it's just salt. But that was very strange to see these trees all being heated, you know, being this. And that was until later when I was doing the research in Rendlesham that I put two and two together. And then...
and got what?
I got this. I got so much of an impression that something big did happen, and I looked up onto the World Monetary Monetary Funds on the day of the storm. There was a big, complete collapse in the World Monetary Fund. It just went down. Got it on a picture here somewhere of the whole lot just dropping on that day. So I saw something was going on here, which is either it's proving to our governments somebody's trying to control us by their type of forceful way of showing, you know, you got, because none of this got out to the public. I thought, why wasn't it told to the public? It's all hushed up, trying to hush it up. They took ages to clear the trees and the forest, but there was a lot of damage everywhere.
Okay, in the last minute or two of this on the forest, what is your opinion in 2019, what actually happened there after all these years?
With all this damage left behind. Definitely, we had a setup, a mass invasion, but deliberately done.
Why the invasion? Why do you feel something? You're saying something came from elsewhere. Why do you feel that?
It was made, these craft, the technology these Americans have made, this I call black projects were flying in the 1977s. They had this technology that they could take, you know, the ET home, because they had the technology then to fly at the speed they could move at. And the amount of secrecy about getting these craft out of the forest without being seen. That's why they were landed on the edge of the base, because they didn't want to drop it on the base because they'd be in view. So they landed all in the tree. The one that got damaged had to land in the trees so it could be recovered, and they try to keep it as quiet as possible and keep people out the know. Maybe make. The best thing is to say, oh, it took off again, no, nothing recovered, nobody found nothing, oh, it took off again. That's the easy way to make up, spin off a little bit of more storyline to it. But the what happened there, it passes on. This all feels like it's a big setup of a. It's very serious actually, because what they've done, they've devastated our trees and radiation all over the parts of the countryside. And I dare say you go around the trees that are standing today with the big old grooves and everything in it, I'll bet you they've got radiation in them too as well.
I mean, you have a radiation thing, but we could look at that.
I got it because I didn't want to go start nosing around anywhere else now. Make sure I've got this a bit more safe to be.
Well, we'll leave that for the next little break.
Yeah. But that was very. I just got. It was strong. I just had to keep going and trying to prove and tell people. Then I thought I was a bit crazy going around all the trees, but I just got this in my head. I had to do it, and I had to just keep looking, because the more I looked, the more I was finding. And the more I was finding, I said, there's something big here gone on. People are blind. They're still in.
Well, they're not blind enough when the forestry guy gives you a wink and a nod.
Yeah, there's people know. Yeah, there's certain people know things, and they have their own guide accounts. So the forestry have their own guide accounts, so they got to check it's safe to be in these areas. That's quite normal to.
Why would forestry workers have Geiger counters? I thought they'd have chainsaws and things like that. But why Geiger counters?
If you're in a forest and you've got planes that are coming down, radiation could be come off something, could be a radioactive arsenal or something dropped or something fell off.
That's because it's the base.
Yeah, base.
So they're...
Yeah, because I was lucky. This is what I think. I'm so lucky because I used to go with my tractor. Well, I worked with Ted Bridges. I used to go with my little tractor. I used to take it to Nelson Potter's woodyard, the woodman, Nelson Potter. Ted used to know Nelson Potter. They used to go to school together. Now, Nelson Potter used to have the wood business in Rendlesham, and Nelson knew about the craft that landed in the forest. And I asked Nelson, because I got talking to Nelson, had his little hut, and I used to go in there. And I said to Nelson, I said, the UFO that landed in the forest, I said, do you see? And he said, oh, I've seen it. He said, but that can be done with a blow lamp. And I thought, no, that's interesting, because he's given a bit more away. There's something heat involved. I thought that ties in with what's happening down the forest, because he says, "Oh, I saw." So, but you know,
do you think he's been told to shut up?
He was involved with all this because his yard is not far from that side. If you think of Bromswell, I said talking about the firing range. His is just that side of the Bromswell, just one side of that. Nelson Potter's yard is right nearby. He would be like me, know every tree in that forest, because I used to know all the roots, all the trees. You know where to go to show somebody. Oh, there's a tree over here you want to look at. You want to see the grinding marks on this tree, or that one. I used to go around all the forest. I used to go to the Bromswell firing range. I used to wander around. And so Nelson knew a lot about the forest, and he would know exactly where he was going. And he said he was in the areas of landing sites, and he said that just like something it could have been done with a blow lamp. And I thought that's interesting information, because Nelson was...
You think it's bullshit?
Well, he's got to be hushed up. Somebody cut the trees down for the recovery of the craft out of the forest. Whether the own team that come off the plane that came at the time, or whether Nelson was involved as well, he could have been. There's forestry there, normally quite tied in with the military.
Yeah.
And I dare say...
Okay, we're going to have to stop it at that point.
Yeah.
And we'll take it up in another little section.
Yeah.